Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that had come upon him, they came each from his own place, Eliphaz the Temite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. They made an appointment together to come to show him sympathy and comfort him. And when they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him. They raised their voices and wept, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads towards heaven. And they sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great. The ashes which Job sat in was not just his fireplace in his house, but the landfill site outside the city where the rubbish is burned. In Jesus' day, that area was called Gehenna, and Jesus used that word as a term for hell. Job would have been sitting there for a long time without anyone else. His friends do come, but they are travelling from far-off places and had to communicate with one another to make sure that they arrive together. Job would have been there by himself for weeks, if not months, with only the pain of his sores and the agony of his lost sons and daughters heavy on his mind. So what a relief that his friends arrive. Friendship in those days meant far more than what it means today. A friend was someone who had a steadfast love and loyalty. We might think of how Jonathan was willing to give up the favour of his father, King Saul, for the sake of his friend David. More than this, these friends were most likely wise men. Eliphaz was from Teman, which is in Edom. Edom is associated with wisdom in Obadiah 8, and Teman in particular with wisdom in Jeremiah 49:7. So what a blessing it would be that these 3 wise, loyal and loving friends who have undertaken this long journey bring comfort to their distraught friend. However, their wisdom and love fails them. Job has been so disfigured and changed by this nightmare that they cannot recognize him. I wonder if you have ever seen someone after a debilitating accident or horrific illness which just ravages the person. It causes such a jarring experience of how that person was, maybe in their liveliness, their sharp wit, easy conversation, and with the person you see before you. It makes you aware of this unbridgeable gap between you and them and the one suffering, making you feel completely inadequate to offer any words of sympathy or comfort. Job's friends are stunned into silence, not just for a few hours, but for 7 days and 7 nights. This is a time of deep mourning. It's as if Job has already died and his friends are mourning by his open casket. And this silence probably made Job feel even more alone. He was beyond the reach of his friends and they were unable to help him. His suffering has completely isolated him from everyone else, and while they are physically close to him, there is a large chasm between them. Job is suffering terribly, and because of that, he is entirely alone. The night that Jesus was betrayed, he went up to Gethsemane with his 3 disciples to pray. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." That's what Jesus said to his disciples, and yet his disciples fell asleep. His disciples betrayed him, denied him, and fled from him on the night he was handed over to the Roman soldiers. And on that cross, he cried, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Because Jesus went through that, because of the loneliness he experienced, because of all that he suffered, it means that no believer will ever go to the same depths that Job descended to. Jesus crossed the chasm, bridged the gulf, and now lives with us even when we suffer. So a question: how does studying and thinking about the loneliness and agony that Job and Jesus went through help us as we try to comfort others whose suffering seems so much beyond anything that we've ever gone through?